Definitely the craziest story you've told me through all our discussions, and this really changes things for buyers and sellers. And I found myself a little bit scared of this.
I actually worked with a seller in the past that had his home listed with us. We had a lot of activity, and he's got cameras set up around his house, including a doorbell. One of the interested parties was sitting out at their car at the end of the driveway, and they were discussing terms with their real estate agent. They actually said, I think here's where we want to come in at for price. This is the one for us. Like, we absolutely want this house. It's our dream house. We have to get it. Well, let's get it at any cost. Here's what we should go in at. But if we really had to, we would go up to this price. So before that offer ever even came to me, that seller had texted me and said, hey, we're going to get an offer from this agent. Here's what they're going to come in at, and I want to counter at this price. And he actually gave me a price that was slightly higher than what they had said their max was. Then they did, of course, submit the offer. We countered, and then they came back at what they said their max was. But to be honest, my seller would have been happy with the initial offer had they not said anything. So had he not overheard them saying they're willing to pay more. So that conversation that they had out at the street just cost them $20,000, all because they weren't cognizant of the idea that that doorbell could possibly hear them at the street.
That is an absolutely terrifying story. Like, that's a $20,000 loss is what you're telling me on that incident alone.
It's something to think about. You always want to be careful, especially if you're talking about, motivations and terms.
Smart home technology has really changed the game when it comes to selling a home. And if you make some of the mistakes that we're going to show you today, you could really lose a lot of money on selling your home. Or it could become impossible to sell it altogether. Hello, automators. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life. Thanks for tuning in again. And I'm here with Brandon, who's a realtor. He's going to give us a ton of stories and a ton of his knowledge. He has his own YouTube channel where he focuses on the smart home side of real estate and really helping you pick the right products there. So thanks for joining us, Brandon.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. I've been a longtime viewer and supporter of the channel, so I'm really excited to share a real estate agent's point of view.
Now, Brandon, you had a few stories for us, and one of the best ones was kind of around smart locks and what can happen if people don't do the right things before they leave. Can you kind of give us some insight into what you've experienced?
I've had a time where a buyer purchased a home and there was a smart lock, but the previous seller didn't disable it from their account. So when the new owner went to go set up the app and everything, Yale was telling them, nope, this lock is already registered to another user, and wasn't letting them do so. It was difficult because that seller had already left the property. So we had to set up a support ticket for them to go in and say, yes, I sold the house. You can release this lock and allow the new user to register it. So it's important to do that, before you remove your internet from the house, and just go around and factory reset all of the devices, make sure they're disconnected from your account. That way the new owner can come in and claim them as their own.
And kind of flowing still on those smart locks. So you told me about a potential security risk actually just when you're showing your home that you had run into and found with smart locks.
With a lot of smart locks, you're gonna find that the master code is actually printed on the back of the battery holder. And there might be a little screw that holds that piece in place, but for some locks, you can just walk over, pull that battery lid off, and look at the code on the back. So anyone that's entering the home could do that. They could write down that code or just take a quick picture with their phone, and that would actually allow them to come back at a later time and completely reprogram all of the codes because they have the master programming code.
I never even thought about that when I go and, I'm leaving a home or I'm going into somebody's home and we're talking about, their smart lock or things like that. So you kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking about the smart locks, but when I left my last home, I removed everything. And this was before I had listed it. But I think you've encountered a couple of ways that people have prepared to leave their home. What would be your recommendation for those people?
When you're thinking about selling your home, it's important to go around and do an audit and see what smart home technology you have installed, there may be things that you're going to want to take with you. And so we typically recommend that you actually uninstall those products so that they're not there when people are doing the showings. Otherwise, there may be some expectation that those are included. And so it is important to note the difference between what is a fixture and what is personal property. So things that are going to be mounted in place, like your locks, your thermostat, maybe a doorbell, those are all fixtures. Same with light switches. But other things like your hubs, your light bulbs, those are going to be personal property and things that you would typically take with you. And we actually see it quite a bit in home theaters as well. Think of all of the video equipment that's there, the receiver, things like that. And so you're advertising this really cool theater system, but in reality, everything that's in that rack is going to be personal property. And so unless the buyer's asking for it, the seller may take it with them, and then you're spending another $10,000 to replace those components.
Yeah, I mean, I remember leaving my last place. Like I said, I had taken a lot of stuff, but when I went into that home, somebody had actually cut a piece of the house out, and then that became something that we battled about, and they eventually had to replace that. I think you'd mentioned a little bit about some of the more expensive systems or the more integrated systems like Control4 and Crestron, and what people might run into if they've installed those in their homes or they're looking at buying a home with one of those.
So we had an instance here in Maple Grove where we had a seller that came to us and was not successful selling their home with a different agent. They approached me because they knew that I'm a smart home technology guy. They have Control4 throughout their home. And I had to explain to them that, the buyers that are looking in this price point, they don't expect to have a system like that, and they're actually intimidated by the control panels that you have on your wall. If there's a system in place such as Control4 or Crestron, Savant, Elan, those are professionally installed systems. They certainly add a lot of value. However, a lot of those do have requirements to work with a dealer in order to make changes. So the new buyer is going to want to work with a local dealer in order to take ownership of that, get set up on the app. It's important to know that while, yes, there's really cool technology, there may be a cost that's associated with getting set up on that system. And some people, that's a great value. Certainly on the luxury side of things, it's kind of an expectation to have that level of technology seamlessly built into your home. So what we recommended to him was for him to remove those products and then just replace them with standard switches. Once we did that, the home sold very quickly, and he was actually able to resell those products on eBay and get some of his money back.
So that's kind of tied to the fixture discussion you said, and just, people becoming intimidated sometimes with smart home tech. Are you finding nowadays that people are moving from being intimidated for the most part when they see smart home tech, or is there still less knowledge out there or less willingness to take on a smart home?
Buyers are really looking for a smart lock, a Ring doorbell, or equivalent. Those are kind of buying triggers to them. They love that smart thermostat, whether it's a Nest or an Ecobee. Things like that, I think, definitely add value. They certainly help the home stand out against the competition. I like to think of smart home technology as kind of like furniture. It does have a shelf life, and there is a personal preference to it. So certainly purchase it if it's something that adds value to your life, but there isn't always an expectation that you'll get that money back.
I really love that you shared that with our audience. And for you automators, if you want to hear more from Brandon, learn how to integrate this smart home technology with your home in the right way, go check out their channel. That's up on screen right now. Otherwise, thanks for watching today. Thanks to Brandon for coming. And of course, don't hate, automate.